What's up, GBA type fans? It is me, itzTurbo. I'm here to replace the Verd this week, or well, not even this week, from now on until the rest of the season for the GBA Power Rankings. We're here with Season 8, Week 8 of the GBA Power Rankings today. We are here with someone you may recognize because he's not going anywhere. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm still the same guy. I'm still Abe. What here, dude? You're asking me to introduce myself to people who I've not left.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. Hi guys, and welcome to the first, well, the second, third Power Rankings without Verd this season. Turbo is a more than capable replacement, and yeah, let's just jump into it with these bottom 6 teams. We're pretty much in agreement. We've got 2 swapped around, but Montreal Habsols and Melbourne Rotums are the 2 we got in the wrong places. Let's just briefly sum up the other ones. Coach Zed, another loss. Victorian Shadows, another loss. Crimson, another loss. Yeah. I've got Aaron at number 13 instead of Asta because Asta won against the dude who was steamrolling everyone, so very good job. Aaron, if you want to do more draft, and I hope that you do, because I do think that VGC players in draft are big threats, please don't bring the same 6 mons 5 out of the 8 weeks. Throughout the entire 8-week period, 5 of the mons that he brought in this matchup have come every or there have been 5 of the mons that came in this matchup on his team every week. He's only not used one of them for 3 games, and that's it. And 3 of his squad haven't seen the games at all this season. I'm honestly kind of disappointed because I was expecting big things of Aaron coming into the season. Asta, good win. I love the Dom Anatan set. It's always nice to see Belly Drum Dom getting some love. Yeah, well done for winning, but equally, you're pretty much out of the playoff races now. I'm sorry, but it's too late to start playing really well. So then, do you want to talk about those 2 at all?
I mean, just to say, I've got Aaron slightly above Asta still because I think Asta's played, Asta's played well in the season, but I think his prep has been weak. Whereas Aaron's prep's been reasonably good. He's just struggled to adapt to the singles format. I think that's the difference. Also, you mentioned about Aaron's team bringing the same 5 mons. I think that's more of a weakness in draft rather than his style in itself. I think his draft was weak from the start.
Equally though, 5 of the 8 weeks it has been Mimikyu, Pelipper, Megapert, Ludicolo, Kingdra, and Kartana. 5 of the 8 weeks.
That's true. That's
true.
In
the other 3 weeks, he's replaced one of those mons with Porygon Zed once and Heliolisk twice. That sort of rigidity in draft format doesn't really work. I know in VGC you get a team and you stick to it and you learn the team, but that sort of thing will be exploited in draft.
I mean, true, but let's jump into the people who have mild playoff contention because that's what the viewers want to hear. So at number 11, both of us have the same team in the San Jose Sharpedos, hitting a mild loss streak at this point in time. Tom is mildly struggling at the moment. He took another rough defeat this week, and Tom is annoying because I know how hard it's against Geo, by the way. I know how hard he preps. He could have pursued turn 1 with his Houndoom. I know that he had, or turn 2 I think it was actually. I know he had that, and that would have completely changed the dynamic of the game. But I think Tom has been playing well. But he just sort of fell off during the mid-season. And the most important thing to know about Tom is he has shown improvement from the last couple of seasons, and despite his draft being absolutely brilliant, although he couldn't quite stretch it out this season, I think he's got good stead to go into next season anyway. He's not making playoffs really unless a miracle happens.
Teams above him, he'd need 2 teams above him to lose every game in order to win, in order to make it into playoffs. Now he'd need Milwaukee to not match him in record, and he'd need one of the guys who's gone 6-2, of who there are 4 in his division or conference or whatever, and you need one of them to lose every single game. It's not realistically happening, but he has shown improvement this season, and it is encouraging to see.
Fair enough. Jumping into my number 10 is the Bronx Bear Ticks. Now, again, might get crucified in the comment section for this. I've got Joey quite low. The reason I have Joey below the Milwaukee Bears, the player who you have at number 10 and I have at number 9, is because Joey holds the same record as the Milwaukee Bears and has a worse differential. Now, although he did just beat Wolfie, just because you beat someone doesn't give you the auto right to jump over them. I think that in comparison to Joey hasn't played as well as Wolfie has this season, which is why I have him at number 10. He has shown, in this game, he showed a sort of aspect of Joey that we've all wanted to see, where he's identified a very big threat. He's had backup wing cons just in case, and then the Heracross set clearly worked. He had different wing cons for once in a game instead of having one specific win con. When it hasn't worked, it's lost him the game. So I was impressed by that with Joey, except he needs to up his differential, because 4-4 -6 is probably going to be the main reason that differential -7, my apologies, is probably going to be the main reason why he doesn't make playoffs, is that a poor differential, and that's, I think, is going to really hurt him.
The reason I have Joey above Wolf is not because that he beat Wolf this week. It's because realistically, Joey has a much better shot of making playoffs than Wolf does. Because if you look at his conference, he's one win behind the two guys who are above him. So realistically, I think he plays Lars sometime in the next couple of weeks. I don't know the schedule by heart. So if he wins that game, suddenly all he needs is for Lars to mess up once more, and he's in playoffs. So he's got a legitimate good shot of making playoffs at this point. And I feel like Wolf just probably doesn't anymore. He'd need one of the... it's the same situation as Tom, almost, in that he'd need the guys above him to lose half of their remaining games when they've not lost more than twice the entire season. So Joey has an easier time of it getting into playoffs than Wolf does. His conference has a lower entry requirement, I think, will be required at the end of the season. So I feel like Joey has to be above him, just because in terms of the race for playoffs, Joey is in the better position.
I do agree with that, actually. Interestingly, I've just remembered that Lars has to play Jolt again as well, so that could be an interesting rematch.
That too.
But
I feel like Joey has to play Jolt as well, though.
Yeah, that might be a thing. But I mean, never see a return block Zygarde, you don't know. But I might talk a little bit of Wolfie. I've been really impressed with him. He did play... I didn't understand... like his prep, I did understand his prep slightly. Like he didn't think Joey would bring the Defog Whimsicott, which is interesting prep on his part. I think that Wolfie's team is limited, but he's using it very, very well. The Z Trick Room is kind of a fun bring, especially if you want to run Focus Blast. Z Trick Room is always a great set. If you've got a Hypno, try that out. But I've just been really impressed with Wolfie this season. People didn't have the highest expectations of him, and he's topped players that people thought were going to beat him. So I mean, I think 9 is a pretty solid place for Wolfie, but we both discussed both of those. I think they both sit in that 9 and 10 spot, because pretty much 8 to 1 is, well, 8 to about 3 is really, really condensed this week, because the sheer amount of teams that are on 6 and 2 record. But my probably... And 5 and 3. So my probably most more controversial placement is at number 8 is the New Orleans Pelipers. Now, there is a very specific logic to why I have placed John this low, considering I've got people who have got better records above him. Now, the logic I used is John's had a relatively easy schedule.
And throw, and then that's where it goes.
I think that's what Bird did, but we don't talk about that.
I'm kidding a little bit, but I am curious to hear your reasoning here, because he's on a massive win streak. He's doing really, really well in his conference, and I realistically don't see him slipping up. I feel like he's definitely making playoffs.
I do agree with that.
I'm interested in hearing.
So the top 8, I believe, are just like the ones that are shoo-ins to playoffs anyway. I do think John is making playoffs, but the logic I have in Power Rankings having him number 8 is John's had arguably the easiest schedule of everyone who's above him. Also, when you look at the two teams that are near enough the same on this team are probably the Gators and John. The reason the Gators are so much higher than John is because John's only loss came to, or one of John's only losses comes against Tom. Although John beat Chimpact through some slightly hacksy means. Gator beat Tom by a long distance and should have beaten Chimpact. So the 6 and 2 records being the same is why John is lower than Gator, which is why anyone in the comments might want to pull that one up. And then I'll talk about why the Giantes and the Dom fans are above John when I get to them because I don't want to spoil my talk on that. But John down there is probably because I think he's had the easiest schedule of all of the 6 and 2 teams, and his differential, correct me if I'm wrong, is the lowest out of all of them as well. That's why I have John at number 8. But I'm not discrediting his.
I'm going to let you defend yourself before I explain why I feel like that's a really bad placement. But okay, Borussia Dortmund and San Jose Giants. With regards to this, again, they've played well throughout the season, but they are the ones who are at the most risk of dropping out of playoffs. They have that one extra loss, and they've got a closer challenger than anyone in the Ultra Moon Conference. So, realistically, if either of them slip up and take their foot off the gas, they could very well be kissing playoffs goodbye. And they have still got to play really tough opponents as well. Gio has an easier time of it than Lars does in terms of the rest of the schedule, I feel, which is why I have Gio a little bit above Lars. Lars has to play Jolt Aaron, who on his day can do well. He is a really good player. And did I say Jolt or Joey first? Whichever one I didn't say, the other one as well. So I feel like with those games remaining, Lars is in a less comfortable position than John is by far, and then by Gio is as well. So yeah, I really don't see John being that low, if I'm being entirely honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's played really well. Isn't he on like a 5-game winning streak? He's got momentum on his side. He's playing well. He's executing his game plans well. And I feel like he could actually be a dark horse for the whole thing. Like when you've got momentum on your side, you can really run with it.
I'm seeing that in the comments a lot, but I've got Lars at number 7 now. I do appreciate the point you made about the difficult path to playoffs. I think though, if you look at Lars's performances against the top teams, he has a very, very realistic, good shot at beating those players. Like Jolt said himself that the matchup is very, very difficult, and when it comes to rematches in games when the matchup is difficult, Jolt's already played his ace in that Moonblast, the nature power play on the Venusaur. So interestingly, it's going to be harder for Jolt to come up with prep like that, so maybe Lars can take that to his advantage. That's what I've seen. Interestingly, I think if John had the schedule that Lars had, I would have Lars at number 8, if that makes any sense. So I think that John wouldn't be able to deal with Lars' schedule. I think Lars might be able to. It's a slim chance, don't get me wrong, but I think with the inconsistencies of form that Joey's been in and that Jolt's rematch struggle, I think that Lars has a shot, and I've been impressed with the way he's played. He played really well against Chimpact this week. It was that last turn clutch play, a really, really good preservation from Chimpact. But Lars has been prepping and playing really well. I think he's got a good shot at beating either Joey or Jolt, or even both, and that would be some form of an absolute achievement on his part. But I think he's got a harder schedule than John, but I think he's got a better chance of getting through than you think he will. That's why I've got him higher up. Plus the fact he's played consistently better over a season than John, in my opinion, despite the record. But at number 7, you have someone with a similar record.
Ignore the fact that in terms of the race for playoffs, I feel like it's unquestionable that John makes it in. You'd have to imagine something insane for him to not make it into playoffs. Whereas Lars, if he slips up against Joey, he's in a neck-and-neck race, and it's not easy in that sort of situation at all. And John just doesn't have that level of pressure on him to know that he's got a very serious contender for his position there, because the extra win, the positions that he is in his conference and his division, it's a very, very, very good situation for him to be in, and I don't think that you can fairly reflect that by having him all the way down at number 8. I actually have him above the Philadelphia Scissors as well, because for a similar reason, I feel like there is still a slim chance of Wolfie being able to make it in. There's not really a chance for Tom anymore. And if Wolfie would be to make it in, it would be at Chimpact's expense. And given the form that he's in, the fact that he has won 5 games on the bounce, I feel like it's silly to put John outside of the top 6. I'd give you I'd put him 5th, obviously. 8th, I don't think that's fair. As a reflection of how well he's done this season, I don't think that's fair.
Interesting. Talk to me about your number 7 being Geo, because I again have Geo slightly higher than that.
Geo, you heard everything I said about last. Copy paste that for Geo, except Geo has an easier schedule.
Interesting. You could literally say the same about me. I think Geo's performances against the top teams has probably been the most consistent and best out of everyone in the league, which is why I have him at number 6. So if you look at his performance against MV, Chimpact and Joey respectively, he probably deserved 2 wins out of 3 there. He got 1 win out of 3, but I think in rematches, Geo is going to be looking really, really hot. I think his schedule is slightly easier coming through to the end of the season, and he's on an upward stride. Geo's hit his stride from a rocky start to the season and has been gaining momentum ever since. I think his schedule's been easier than John's, and I think that his having a mildly comparable, not exactly the same, but a comparable record to John's warrants Geo at number 6, especially after playing Jolt, Chimp and Envy and playing really, really respectively against all of them. And if he losing by a minimal margin, not necessarily a big margin. I think if Geo goes through into the playoffs, which I think he's got a very, very good chance of, don't get me wrong, he can slip out. I think he's got a good shot of a semi-final place at minimum, because I think his team's pretty good. He's once Geo starts winning, it's very hard to stop winning. So I think Geo warrants his place at number 6. But at number 6, you've got the Philadelphia Sizzles. So talk to me about them.
Yeah, I kind of covered them because I kind of thought I had already talked about Geo. But yeah, basically, he's got a bit of a contender in terms of his place, but he's played well throughout the season. This was more a matter of I didn't want to put him below people who had worse records than him, who had a tighter playoff race, but I didn't want to put him above someone like John, who I feel like is on a very good and impressive winning streak, and I feel has more momentum going into the playoffs. So yeah, 6 was the right place for me for him. So shall we move on to our number 4 and number 3?
Just a quick word on Chimpact. Actually, I think that
sure.
I think he's comfortable. I think he doesn't warrant out of top 5. To be honest, I think top 5 is pretty solid for him. He's racked up some.
I feel the same way about John.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We're entitled to our little disagreements, and of course the comments are entitled to disagree with us as well. But I think Chimpact comfortable. He hasn't been showing dominant wins as of late. Most of them have been nicking a 1-0 or just sort of a little bit of cash prep coming in the end game, which does warrant his overall testing and prep style. But it's an interesting one from Chimpact because he's usually a lot more commanding than this. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets it into playoffs and whether he clinches the 1 seed for his division, because that could be interesting in terms of opponent that he faces. But we can talk about our top 4 right now. I've talked a bit, so you can talk about your first number in the number 4, and that is the Gators.
Okay, so Gators and Luxrays for me, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest here. I feel like they could go in either position. And I've just put Gator a very, very slight bit lower, purely down to the fact that I generally think that Mono's played a little bit better throughout the season. But I don't have that much to say on either of these two. They both played really, really well throughout the entire season. They both they're both currently topping their conference. They're both guaranteed playoffs. Let's be entirely honest. With the way that they're playing, they're going to make playoffs, and I don't see them slipping. So this was just a matter of judging very slightly on who I thought played better throughout the season. And Gator did have the 2-week period where he dipped a little bit. So based almost entirely on that, I'm putting Gator 4th and Mono 3rd. It is really just a matter of splitting hairs for that particular position, though. I
mean, I completely agree. They're literally the same record, the same differential. There's not much to compare them. I've got Gator slightly higher because there is a chance he could.
Because he saw my rankings first and decided to disagree.
That's a lie. I wrote mine first. But the reason I put Gator top first is because I think that Gator could have had. He could have had.
He actually did his first, by the way. I'm kidding.
The reason I have Gator 3rd is because he's 6-0'd week 1. No, I'm joking. The reason I have Gator 3rd is because he he could have got another win against Chimpact in the season that could have put him up at a slightly higher record. So I guess that's the one contributing factor, that this is literally how tight these two are. Like the third and fourth, it literally doesn't matter when it comes to these two. Again,
equally, my counterpoint to that would be it was a 5% for Mono to not give GBA another win up as well.
That's a very good point, actually. So like literally the third and fourth is a hair's length.
It is.
There's no point.
Can we just both put them at 3.5? Like
we'll take a 3.5. We'll take a 3.5.
Yeah.
So that's completely fine.
Now, they're equal. They're in the same conference with the same record, the same differential. So
like,
I mean, we can't really split them apart based on that. Moving into the top two have been the same for a long while now.
Yeah, true.
It's Chimpact and it's Jolt, and I'm just going to say this before you can, so that I have something to say for this one. The reason I have Jolt above no, it's not Chimpact, it's Chim Chargers, it's Envy. Fuck's sake. I think that's the third time I've done this season. Anyway, the reason I've got Jolt first and Envy second is because Jolt beat Envy.
Nice.
That's it.
Okay.
The pure, simple decider on this one was head-to-head. And yeah, that's basically based on the way that Jolt beat Envy as well, because it wasn't like a haxy win, it was a dominant performance. Based purely on that one match, Jolt's ahead now instead of Envy, given that they're now on the same record, although Envy does of course have the high differential. I don't really think that anyone would begrudge anyone putting Envy first or Jolt first. They're clearly the two dominant teams, and a final between the both of them would be nice. Although is that possible with playoffs are structured?
Don't watch playoff picture and you'll see. It's a slight plug, but again, yeah, I do agree. I think that just because a win against the Victorian Shadows puts you with a slightly higher differential than Jolt doesn't mean it warrants a first place again. Just because you win in a specific week doesn't mean you've been the more consistent team overall this season. I think that Jolt's body bagging of Envy in the earlier season does show a golfing class between the two players, and that might be a controversial statement, but I think in the long run in the GBA, especially into the playoff race, you'll see that the actual how good a Jolt is compared to the rest of the league, and that's why I think he deserves to stay at number one. Again,
it's nice to know that no matter who I'm partnered with, I will always be the one not receiving hate.
That's true. I mean, it's true. I think that Jolt's loss warranted him on him not accounting for 44 EVs in defense on a Darmanitan, which, I mean, you have to be a complete inhuman to know that Darmanitan's going to have 44 EVs with no prior chip and no calcs. He was even calcing max HP, which was pretty much Asta's set. He just didn't calc the 44 EVs of defense that would allow Asta to take the heavy slam.
I only knew because I watched Justice Team Builder, but I knew.
There you go. So I think that Jolt doesn't warrant a loss from top spot, because, and if you're trying to tell me that,
I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm talking.
I've got him at number one. Don't act like a thing he's not.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm talking to the comment section.
There's only so much we can do to pad out the runtime of this, okay?
True, I'm just talking to the comment section right now. My main reasoning is, if you think or anyone else in the league or yourself would have guessed about those 44 EVs, you're welcome to be my critic, but I don't think anyone would. And I think that's just to Asta's credit more than anyone else. But I guess that takes our power rankings to an end.
Asta below Wolf.
Yeah,
Not below Wolf. I meant below Aaron. Jeez.
This is going to be a fun 3 weeks. I can tell you that for now.
Oh,
but
dear.
This brings us to the end of this week's power rankings. Make sure you show the support to all the coaches whose links will be in the description. Make sure you watch all of the weekly videos on the GBA channel, because all us analysts put exceptional work and effort into it. Shout out to Abe, my co-host. Well, I guess I'm his co-host because he's the longest standing analyst. But yeah, Abe, have you got any closing? That's cool. Have you got any closing sentiments?
Yeah, be prepared for me to slip up in my wording a lot more, because Verd was kind enough to edit out when I was saying things like Wolf instead of Aaron before. So yeah, trust me, that happens way more than you guys think it does, and it already happens a lot. Thank you guys for watching, though. We will see you next week, same time, and peace.
Bye.